Hello and welcome to ABC7's 2024 Hurricane Special, In the Eye of the Storm, a survival guide. I'm ABC7 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. During the next hour, the ABC7 First Alert Weather Team will be giving you the vital information you need to survive a hurricane this year. We'll be talking with experts about how we can protect our families from these dangerous storms. Hurricane season begins June 1st and runs through November 30th. Forecasters at Colorado State University are predicting an extreme season for 2024 with 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes and 5 major hurricanes. Here's why it's due to the, let's do it again. I'm sorry, you guys. I messed that up and it screwed. Hello and welcome to ABC7's 2024 Hurricane Special, In the Eye of the Storm, a survival guide. I'm ABC7 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. During the next hour, the ABC7 First Alert Weather Team will be giving you the vital information you need to survive a hurricane this year. We'll be talking with experts about how we can protect our families from these dangerous storms. Hurricane season begins June 1st and runs through November 30th. Forecasters at Colorado State University are predicting an extreme 2024 hurricane season with 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes and 5 major storms. Here's why. It's due to La Nina, cooling of the eastern Pacific, showing up during the peak of the season. On top of that, the water temperatures in the Atlantic are boiling right now and expected to stay well above average through the season. But remember, every year you should prepare the same way no matter how many storms are predicted, because all it takes is one hitting our coast to make it an active season. Hurricane Ian was the strongest, costliest, and deadliest storm ever to hit the west coast of Florida, with winds up to 155 miles an hour. A catastrophic 15-foot storm surge roared ashore on Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel Island September 28, 2022, disrupting millions and killing over 140 people, and a lot of those after the winds and waves had died down. You have to go all the way back to 1935 to find more deaths from a hurricane in Florida when a Cat 5 blew through the Florida Keys. If you're new to Florida, then you might be new to hurricanes. Hurricanes are different from other types of severe weather. Our meteorologist Mike Modrick has what you absolutely need to know about these potentially devastating storms.
If you're new to Florida, you're new to hurricanes, and here's what you absolutely need to know for these potentially dangerous storms. Hurricanes do hit the Sun Coast. They don't hit as often as other parts of Florida. But the most recent hurricane, Hurricane Irma in 2017, that was devastating to inland counties of the Sun Coast. When a storm hits the east side of Florida first, then moves toward the Sun Coast, that kind of storm weakens considerably before it makes it to the west side of the state. Most deaths that occur with hurricanes happen from flooding and drowning. Now, flooding can occur with the average 16 inches of rain that can fall, but also the storm surge. The storm surge is a wall of water that comes in ahead of the storm. Now, that wall of water can be just 2 feet above average sea level, or it can be 30 feet above average sea level. Evacuations are issued based on the storm surge strength, not how strong the winds are. Hurricane tracks are subject to change. Now, computer models give us an idea. The hurricane may be moving more to the east in one computer model run, and then in the next one it may change and pushing it more to the west. But over the course of time, the track gets better and better refined. But that's why it's important to stay up to the latest on the hurricanes and the track that we're getting, not only from the National Hurricane Center, but from all the different computer models that we use to track these storms. Tornadoes are completely different from hurricanes. In fact, tornadoes are quite common when a hurricane threatens the coast, and they can occur well away from the center of the storm. The wind, rain, and storm surge could last for several hours or even days as the storm moves through. The cleanup, loss of power, blocked or flooded roads will usually last for days after the storm has passed, and sometimes even longer. 3 days is 72 hours, and that's why we say the first 72 is on you when it comes to surviving the storm. You need a plan now. You need a survival kit with food, water, medications, batteries, and a hand-powered radio. You need cash and important documents in a waterproof storage, and you need to choose a safe room in your home where you can shelter safely during the storm. You need to know where the evacuation shelters are in case you do need to leave your home. Every storm is different, so the choice of when and where to evacuate is different for every storm. So stay tuned to ABC7 and the First Alert Storm Team for the latest information so that you can survive the storm.
Thanks, Mike. When it comes to hurricanes, most people think of the wind doing the most damage, but actually there is something even more dangerous: storm surge. It can quickly turn water into a powerful and destructive force. That's why it's always important to remember: hide from the wind and run from the water. Just a couple of days out, it was looking like Anna Maria Island would be the main target for this storm. But it took a slight turn to the right, or east, which brought death and destruction to Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel Island. While the wind always gets the top billing before a storm hits, it is the surge with hurricanes that has the potential for the greatest loss of life and causes the most destruction. This proved to be true with Hurricane Ian. 36 people lost their lives on Fort Myers Beach as a 15-foot monster storm surge destroyed 900 structures and damaged over 2,000. Waves on top of this incredible surge hammered homes to pieces, or just simply knocked them off their slabs and floated them down the streets. Now, a lot of people stayed on the island despite being under an evacuation order 30 hours prior to getting tropical storm force winds. This ride-it-out mentality may be due to a lot of people leaving during Irma in 2017, only to come back home and see minimal damage on the island. The center of Irma tracked well to the east of Fort Myers Beach, and there was little surge, if any at all, with this storm. Another key reason for not evacuating may be that a few days out from landfall, the national media were all staged on the beaches in Pinellas County, thinking Ian was likely to hit there. This may have also contributed to a false sense of security for Fort Myers Beach residents.
But I do recall hearing that it was headed for Tampa. And I think the vast majority of people within this area heard the same thing and thought, well, it's going to Tampa, we're not going to worry about it because it's going north of us. And as we now know, that wasn't the case.
This is an important point. Forecasting where the storm is going to make landfall is not an exact science, especially a couple of days out. And not all dangerous weather is confined to the cone. When the warnings go up and you are in an evacuation zone, you have to grab your bag and leave. Well, this establishment is open. It's on the bay, away from the beach. This is how high the storm surge got with Hurricane Ian as it roared ashore as a Category 4 hurricane.
But then it made that bend, and we were already committed to stay. You can't leave after.
Mr. Warren and his wife, residents of Fort Myers Beach, stayed and feared for their lives as they abandoned their single-story home and rode the storm out in their neighbor's two-story house.
Yeah, it didn't come up that fast, but time you walk to the neighbor's house and look back, it was coming up, and it was like, oh, this ain't good. And then it just kept coming up, and it got up to the windows, and I was like, okay, we're still good, and then it got past the windows, and I go, my house is gone.
The devastating images of Ian should instill in us how powerful these storms can be. Some people base their decision not to evacuate from past experiences with tropical cyclones, and they shouldn't, as each storm is different, just like its name. For example, Charlie in 2004 was a very tight storm, with mainly wind damage around a 15-mile radius, and not much surge at all, as it slammed into the same place as Ian did back in 2004. Ian was 4 times larger, with far-reaching impacts, with a life-threatening storm surge associated with it. They were both Category 4 storms, but totally different in the destruction they brought to the west coast of Florida. After seeing the damage firsthand nearly 8 months later on Fort Myers Beach, and talking with some of the residents who rode out the storm, I can only hope that everyone in our area heeds the warnings and evacuates when asked to do so.
Get out. Get out. Don't chance it. It's not worth the risk. I mean, this is just stuff. It's all replaceable. You're not. I mean, it's not worth it. You versus Mother Nature always wins.
Oh yeah, yeah, never stay. I'll never, even thunderstorms scare the heck out of me now, you know, so. Yeah, it was a lot worse than you could ever imagine.
Well, a lot of people only looked at the cone during Ian and made decisions, so the National Hurricane Center needed to make a change. Mike Modrick talked to NHC's deputy director about what's new this year.
It's 22 years old and getting an experimental facelift. This is the first forecast cone produced by the National Hurricane Center for Tropical Storm Arthur on July 14, 2002. Little has changed over 2 decades, with the same basic look in this animation of Hurricane Ian's forecast. While the Hurricane Center points out that the Fort Myers area was always in the southern edge of the cone, the size of the new experimental cone is getting 4% to 9% wider to include a larger area. So with this new cone, do you think that there'll be some less confusion?
That's the hope. That's the hope of the experimentation, to help convey that a hurricane is not a point. You know, that's the biggest thing. It's not a point. And so setting up at a specific location, trying to nail the point, is where we're getting in trouble. We need the networks to understand that it is a big, broad system that spreads its hazards over multiple counties, and in some cases multiple states.
And because the storm is not just a landfall dot on a map, the center line of the cone is not featured either.
Because we want people to focus not on where the center's going, but the overall impacts of the storm.
The overall impacts start with the winds that can devastate inland communities. The new cone will show hurricane and tropical storm wind warnings not just on the coast, but far inland, shown on top of the cone.
We're adding the inland watches and warnings. We've historically not shown that, which has given people a wrong sense of maybe the impact is less than you might think as you move inland. Well, we're going to try with the wind first, because that's the hazard that has historically been on the cone. So it makes sense to try there first and sort of see how it works. At the same time, though, we're going to ask our colleagues in the media to go ahead and take the next step, which is superimposing the other hazards on there.
Other hazards like this inland flooding on the roads to Myakka State Park after Ian. Whether it's this year or next year or in 5 years, all it takes is one hurricane from landfall to the inland urban jungles, and we all need to be prepared.
Still to come, we all know one of the first things that we lose during a hurricane is our power. What Florida Power and Light is doing to ensure you're plugged in to power through the storm. Plus, the landscape for home insurance is changing. We're addressing what you need to know regarding insurance preparation when we return. Forecasters at Colorado State University predict an extreme 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. While lives cannot be replaced, material items can. Here's Leslie Lacey with what you need to know. I'm sorry, you guys. Can we start that over? Is that possible? Forecasters at Colorado State University predict an extreme 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. While lives cannot be replaced, material items can. Here's Leslie Lacey with what you need to know regarding insurance and preparations.
We're going to address some of the most frequently asked questions, like, can you make changes to your insurance policy when the storm is brewing? Well, most Florida insurers put a moratorium in place when storm warnings are issued, and that means that no coverage or policy changes are allowed. And while you can typically make policy adjustments quickly, the NFIP flood policies, they take 30 days to become effective. Now, joining us now with insight to help you prepare is Mark Freelander. He's the Director of Corporate Communications for the Insurance Information Institute, and that empowers consumers with information that they need to make educated decisions and also manage risks. So, Mark, thanks for joining us. My very first question for you is, what's new this year with the Florida insurance landscape?
The Florida insurance market is stronger this year than last year. It has improved its financial condition, and that's great news for policyholders because they could rest assured they will be protected throughout hurricane season.
Many homeowners were actually forced to use citizens insurance because no other companies would insure them. So it came that, insurer of last resort. So if we have another monster season like we did in 2004, will insurance companies have the same reaction?
We saw something similar in Louisiana in the 2020 and 2021 seasons. Some of the smaller regional insurers could not survive that onslaught of losses.
Hopefully they learned something over the last 20 years from when that happened. So how can residents get financially prepared for the 2024 hurricane season?
Number one, don't wait for the storm warnings to be issued. Contact your insurance agent as soon as possible. Conduct a insurance checkup. Review your policies. Check your coverages. Important point is to factor in inflation. Replacement costs increased 55% between 2019 and 2022. If you haven't updated your policy recently, you could have a big insurance gap. So now's the time to get financially prepared.
We always think about our homes when hurricanes come, but what about protecting your vehicles from storm damage?
You need what's called comprehensive auto. It's an add-on coverage. About 4 out of 5 drivers already have it. It protects you from all the non-collision damage, wind damage, water damage, anything storm related.
And another question is, can homeowners make properties more resilient to hurricanes? And if so, what specific protections could make an impact on lowering that costly insurance premium?
You could take steps to make your home more resilient to storms, fortifying your roof, even adding something as simple as storm shutters. Insurance companies are required to give you discounts if you take mitigation steps towards reducing wind damage. Learn what type of discounts are available to you.
What other steps should residents be taking now to prepare?
Number one, create a home inventory. It's always good to be prepared. Worst case scenario, you suffer damage, you have to file a claim. A home inventory with photos is a great way to prepare, even video as well. Store it on the cloud or in a safe place so you have quick access to it. And also create an evacuation plan. Really important to be prepared to evacuate. We saw mass evacuations during Hurricane Ian. Don't wait until the storm is here. Now's the time to have your plan in place for you and your family. Get ready today.
Excellent information.
Well, before a storm hits, it is important to fortify your home. Two things you are going to have to consider. How much time do you have and how much money you have to spend? John Scalzi breaks it down.
Every hurricane is different. The storms have various combinations of heavy flooding rains or perhaps pounding wind gusts around the eye wall, and others punishing pulses of storm surge waves. But how do you decide what kind of punishment your home can take from a storm?
To answer that question, we talked to renowned scientists in the field of civil engineering and why structures fail in tropical systems. This is SUNY Distinguished Professor Dr. Michel Bruno.
But one of the things that I think Ian showed is that age of construction matters. You could see on the waterfront that some homes survived and some homes did not. You see that all the homes that were built to post 2000 codes were still there, and all of those that were before then were not there. Some of the factors that made a big difference, of course, is the resistance to storm surge by elevating the first floor.
As the storm surge rolls in, an elevated first floor, built to current code, allows the waves to pass through instead of crashing against a solid wall and compromising the structure. That said, elevation or not, if you're in a storm surge zone and asked to evacuate, do so.
I have yet to meet somebody who decided to stay home, hit the maximum speed, get the storm surge to come afterward, and survive and comes back afterward, if they survived, and say, you know what, that was a brilliant idea. I've never seen anybody say that.
So no matter how strong your structure is, when it comes to a storm surge, you're going to run from the water. But wind is another matter. You may be able to shelter in your own home. It depends on the wind resistance of your home, which takes us to our next expert.
The Wall of Wind is a research facility using giant fans to simulate a hurricane. Buildings are then placed in front of those winds to see how they are damaged or destroyed. Dr. Yannis Zisos is the director of the facility and had this to say.
Inspect your homes, do as much as possible. There is like rain, there is wind. So hurricane shutters, impact windows, definitely they help, they make a difference. We've seen a lot of damage on garage doors. A lot of damage is because the wind pushes the garage door, there is an opening, and then wind enters the building.
The doctor also recommends reinforcing the rafters and the trusses of your roof, making sure your front door has good upper and lower bolts, and also reinforce your roof with hurricane strapping.
Finally, we get to freshwater flooding. The rain bands of a hurricane can produce tremendous amounts of rain in a short period of time. Dr. Ian Giamanco has some information on that.
It's important to remember flood is covered through the National Flood Insurance Program, and a lot of homes, we saw this with Ian, that were built essentially on grade, 5 feet above sea level along some of the intercoastal and some of the inland waterways, had substantial storm surge damage. They just weren't elevated to the current standards.
Thanks, John. The first line of defense in protecting your home from the destructive force of a hurricane is to keep the wind out. Mike Modrick shows us why that is so important.
Hurricane Andrew, August 1992. A Category 5 storm at landfall in southern Florida, 175-mile-per-hour winds, and still the most destructive in the state for the number of buildings damaged or destroyed. Engineer Dean Ruark at PGT Industries in Northport says analyzing the storm debris from Andrew changed the thinking about hurricane protection.
What was seen there and the devastation that occurred there really drove to the birth of the idea for an impact-resistant window.
In 2022, Hurricane Ian hit near Fort Myers Beach. PGT engineer Lynn Miller toured the damage and found a very different type of destruction with Ian.
Like I said, this one was more of a storm surge event. And when you're talking storm surge, if you have that huge volume of water being driven on a home like that, if the structure is not designed properly, it doesn't matter what kind of windows you have in it, it's gone.
I asked Lynn what his biggest surprise was touring that damage.
I guess probably the amount of buildings that were just not there. I guess that was the biggest shock to me. But then right next to some of those buildings, there was a building that was built with a concrete frame, had no issues at all.
This picture from Fort Myers Beach shows one of those houses built with a concrete frame. The older homes around it are completely destroyed. Keeping the wind out of your house is also a crucial part of protecting the structure. When debris from a hurricane breaks a window or door, the winds blow right into the building. That increases the air pressure inside, pushing against the inside of the walls and the roof. Combined with the winds blowing over the top of the building, which creates a suction effect, these pressures can rip the roof right off and destroy the building. The glass windows of the home were the weak link with Hurricane Andrew. The way to make that window stronger? The glass sandwich. This is impact-resistant glass. Think of this as a sandwich. Layer of glass, like 2 slices of bread. In between, this is called a rigid interlayer. Think of that as cheese. Put this together, put it in an oven, bake it at pressure, and you've got a grilled cheese sandwich, or in this case, impact-resistant window. The theory is the outer layer of the glass will crack, but the rigid interlayer, the cheese, should keep the entire sandwich together. But can Hurricane Mike break in? Wow. But even though the first layer of glass shattered, no wind is getting through that window.
Thanks, Mike. If a storm hits, strong winds could contribute to widespread power outages that could be going on for weeks. So having a plan on how to deal with that is important. One thing homeowners can do is to keep the areas around the power lines in your yard clear. You can do this by making sure your trees are properly trimmed. Now, if trees are too close to power lines and you do not feel safe doing this, you can reach out to FPL or your power company to possibly help you. During Hurricane Ian, nearly 3 million Floridians were without power. In late September, thousands of utility workers from 34 states were traveling to Florida to help repair power lines. When it comes to preparations for hurricanes, Florida Power and Light leads the way. The company starts well before the beginning of the season. Joining us now with additional insight is Jack Ebel, spokesperson for Florida Power and Light. Thanks for joining us, Jack. When folks lose power, that's when everything starts to go bad. And so now a big part of that is getting everyone back online as quickly as possible. Tell us a little bit about the new technology this year that you have for the upcoming hurricane season.
So we're preparing year-round for hurricane season. We're training our team. We're investing in smart devices throughout the electric grid. So for one of those examples of hardening our electric grid is using smart grid technology. So smart grid technology helps us in a number of ways. It allows us to be proactive, to spot an issue before it happens. It allows us to reroute power to help our customers avoid outages altogether during severe weather and hurricanes, and it helps us restore power faster following storms. At the same time, we're continually hardening our electric grid. So what that may look like is we're continuing to strengthen and reinforce main power lines. These are the power lines that serve critical community infrastructure, such as hospitals, 911 call centers, police and fire stations. And we're also taking a strategic approach of putting neighborhood power lines underground. So it's called our Storm Secure Underground program. And what that does is it takes a data-driven approach and finds those neighborhoods that are highly susceptible to power outages during severe weather and hurricanes, whether it be vegetation, trees, limbs, or other factors. So then we work with those neighbors and those communities and we put those lines underground. That helps our grid be more efficient and helps us be more resilient in the face of severe weather.
Yeah, good points there, Jack. Now, when it comes to those power outages, people in general have to worry about, when is their power going to get back put online? And there's always people that go, well, I saw an FPL truck come by and my power is still off. What is the process of getting power back on to folks after a major hurricane, say?
We have a tried and true method of restoring power to the largest amount of customers in the shortest amount of time. So what that looks like is when we ensure that our power generation facilities are able to generate electricity and then we can transmit that energy throughout the state, then we're starting with the critical community infrastructure. We're starting with those hospitals, 911 call centers, police and fire stations. From there, we're going to those community essentials, think grocery stores and gas stations. And keep in mind, while all these community and critical infrastructures are coming online, so are customers as well. And then from there, we're getting into we're dialing in on those hard-hit communities, those areas, those neighborhoods where we have to get crews maybe into the backyard of the home. And our customers customers keep in mind that it's important to know that even if you do not see a truck, we are still working safely and as quickly as possible. The issue that may be affecting your neighborhood or your community may be a couple miles down the road.
The information and tools we are providing will help you get prepared for the hurricane season. While material things can be replaced, lives cannot. Our hurricane guide is available for you to print for quick reference. All you have to do is go to our website, mysuncoast.com, and click under the Hurricane tab. Our website also has additional segments and information to help keep your family safe. When a storm is coming, nothing is more important than your family's safety. Trust the ABC7 First Alert Weather Team to keep you updated with all the latest on the storm. The power of knowledge is at your fingertips. Our priority is to keep you and your loved ones safe throughout the season. Still to come, if there's a call for you to leave your home, do you know what evacuation level you're in? We'll show you what to do and where to go in the event of an evacuation. Plus, we're checking in with the new heads of Manatee and Sarasota counties EOCs. Are we ready for this year's storms? What you need to know when we return. Welcome back. Insurance coverage for your boat is extremely important, so you'll make sure it's battened down before a storm threatens. However, you might want to make sure your watercraft is not buttoned up with canvas and plugs removed to allow water to drain. Here's meteorologist John Scalzi with more on what you need to know.
During Columbus's final voyage, he suspected a hurricane was coming and hid in a cove. His entire fleet survived, but the governor of Hispaniola ignored Columbus's warning and lost 29 of 30 ships. And the destructive waves from a hurricane can be felt far from the storm itself. Debbie remained at sea, and still boaters lost ships. The best way to protect your investment is to have a plan and act early. In the pre-COVID days, we asked the Coast Guard Auxiliary for their advice.
Whenever you're on the dock, you want to have a life vest on in case you fall over.
If you're leaving your vessel in the water, you've got some work to do. Be sure she's well moored with multiple long oversized lines that are properly tied off. Use extra bow, stern, and spring lines, correctly sized and positioned chafing guards, fenders, and anchor chains with at least a 10-to-1 scope. Secure her both port and starboard.
If you have a small open boat or a performance power boat, to name just two examples, you may want to haul out and take your best option.
If you can put the boat in a garage, do it.
But if you can't garage it, then know how to secure it on a trailer.
The boat is actually tied to the trailer. You want to keep it with the trailer. You don't want the boat to come off the trailer. So you want to tie it down. Lines are good to use, they're strong and everything. However, a winch is better, a strap and a winch.
And lots of them. Be sure the boat is strapped to the trailer in multiple locations. Reinforce the bow and stern eye connections. The goal is to lash until the trailer and boat are one. Then, using screw-in ground augers, or better yet, concrete footers, secure the boat trailer to the ground like there's no tomorrow. Put wood blocks between the axle and frame to protect the springs and deflate the tires to lock the blocks in place. Strip the boat of flags, electronic gear, bimini tops, and any other object that could take flight. Get instruction in these techniques and review until you could do it in your sleep.
Just remember, boaters, you'll need to take action earlier than those without vessels. You'll need to begin securing your boat when the hurricane watch is issued, or perhaps even before, as you'll need the winds and seas to remain manageable. And you'll also have to take care of your home on top of that before the hurricane warnings are issued. Statistically, hurricanes rank first in the reasons boaters file insurance claims. Yet, with proper precaution, history shows that most vessels would be able to survive just fine. A survey by the U.S. Boats Hurricane Catastrophe Field Team found that properly secured vessels have a really good chance of surviving the storm. And two more points. You may not have a choice where to dock, but if you do, a floating dock has been shown to be more resilient to the waves than a fixed dock. And finally, and most importantly, don't write it out on your boat. It might be the worst and last decision you'll ever make.
Excellent advice. Back in 2017, these flamingos were evacuated ahead of Hurricane Irma. Crews at the Busch Gardens theme park moving some 12,000 animals to secure locations ahead of the storm into a shelter room at the park, where zoological teams continued working around the clock to monitor them for any signs of stress. We all know by now that the best way to lessen the stress and anxiety of an approaching hurricane is to have a family plan. But pets are sometimes overlooked when families make plans for storms. John Scalzi has a closer look at what you must think about when storm prepping with pets.
When it's go time for your evacuation level, you better have a plan of action that includes your pet. The first thing to know is where you'll go. If you're heading to a shelter, or a friend's house, or to a hotel, you'll need a crate for each one of your animals. Take pictures of your pets, some with you in them to prove ownership, and attach them to the crates along with copies of the vaccination records. Understand that if you choose the shelter option, you will not be able to stay with your animal during the worst part of the storm.
In the shelter, unless it's a service animal, they will be separated into a different place that has a better area for them to be, wet-wise for water spills or anything like that. But they will be taking care of their pets just like they would do normally, making sure they're fed, making sure that they have the essentials they need, their medications, and walk them when it is safe to do so.
You'll also need a sturdy pet supply kit, including leashes and harnesses, cleanup supplies as well, little baggies and towels, as well as sanitizer. You'll need some toys, new toys they've never seen before to keep their attention, treats, lots of treats. And you'll need the water bottles and bowls, of course. Don't forget the medications they may need, and enough food to last the entire emergency. Hopefully you've had a chance to get your pet microchipped. If not, and you can, do so before the storm arrives. It's the safest way to reconnect with your pet if you get separated. After the storm, sights, sounds, and smells will change. Your dog can become confused and run. Be sure and only walk them on a leash. Post-hurricane, your pet may show signs of PTSD, just like people. A safe spot like a dark clothes closet can help. Set up routines and see a vet. This, above all, never delay an evacuation because of your pet. If you need help, ask for it. It's out there. And with a bit of planning, you and your animal will safely weather the storm.
We are making sure you are fully prepared for this year's hurricane season way before a storm hits. Sarasota County officials are working throughout the year helping you get information on where to go and what to do. I had a chance recently to sit down with the new emergency management chief, Sandra Tapfumene, to get more insight about how emergency operations work to make sure you are prepared.
And we want people to really be listening. You know, the one thing that we've seen across all of Southwest Florida over recent years is that people tend to make decisions based on whatever happened in the last storm, right? And you know as well as anybody that every storm is different.
More and more people are coming from other places that haven't experienced hurricanes. What do you say to those folks?
Sure. Well, if you're new to the area, or even if you've lived here for a long time, as you mentioned, you know, Sarasota County hasn't really been hit by a catastrophic storm. You know, same for Manatee and a long time. And so this is a great time of year to start really getting serious about being prepared. And so there are a lot of different opportunities coming to a hurricane preparedness seminar, listening to this special. So people that are listening are already one step ahead.
What about sheltering?
We do have evacuation centers here in Sarasota County. We have 12 that open for every storm. We also have medically dependent shelters, and we ask people that have, either if they're on oxygen or have, you know, significant medical concerns, to go ahead and apply for that ahead of time at our website. And that's another thing that they'll ask when you apply. Do you have a ride? Do you need a ride? And also for people that maybe they just don't have a vehicle and they don't need a medically dependent shelter, they just need to get to an evacuation center. And so they can sign up ahead of time too, or in order to ask for a ride. We have rally points designated across the county that they can get to the rally point, then a breeze bus will pick them up. But if they can't get to that rally point, we would come and pick them up.
If I didn't have a vehicle to get to a shelter, that's no excuse. But you got to sign up. You got to sign up early.
We would like for people to sign up for those rides ahead of time. But if in the moment you do find yourself needing a ride, you can always dial 311, even if the storm is approaching. And we don't want anyone to have any barriers to going to an evacuation center.
You need to bring to a shelter.
So yeah, if you're coming to an evacuation center, we ask that you think through everything that you're going to need for at least a couple of days to be comfortable. But keep in mind that you're only going to get about a 20 square foot spot for every person in your family.
Starting to get the message out to the people how to prepare, but it's the after effects that can be more important.
Yeah. You know, in recovery, if we were to ever get hit with a substantial storm here, we ask for people to be very patient. It's going to take a little bit of time to get street signs back up, to be able to pick up debris. So to really treat every intersection as though it is a four-way stop if you don't see any signage up. Make sure that you don't drive through flooded waters, because sometimes the road can wash out underneath that water and you're not going to know that, so you try to drive across. That could be very dangerous. Home was built after 2002 or newer. You have your home was built with more stringent building codes in the state of Florida. So if you're outside of the evacuation area and you're not concerned about any need to be able to move out of the area, like medical concerns, for example, then it is safe for you to stay in your home. And we do encourage people to have hurricane shutters and extra protection around windows, but staying at home is an option. But if you do, you still need a kit of supplies, because if your refrigerator goes out, for example, we like to ask people, how long can you go with just eating what's in your pantry or anything that's not a refrigerator or freezer space?
I appreciate your time, and I hope we don't see much of you, but it's good seeing you.
Very good. Good to meet you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Manatee County also has a new chief in town. He's a native of Florida and has firsthand knowledge of what these storms can do. And he's no stranger to our area.
So I started here in 2017 and have been here ever since.
You know, I'm sure that when you guys talk, people should listen.
Yeah, we are the subject matter experts in our field, and we are doing things in a precise way. There's scientific research behind everything, behavioral. There's also, obviously, we have to think of evacuations, timing, where they're going to go, how we're opening things, how we're setting our priorities. And so it's all in a meticulous manner that works with really everyone.
As far as evacuations go for Manatee County, people have to realize that evacuations are issued as a result of what?
They're a result of storm surge. So the actual water coming from the Gulf of Mexico onto land. that's being pushed by the storm and the winds itself. So we're not talking about aerial flooding from rain. We're talking about the storm surge that can be very deadly. So we always tell people to run from water and hide from wind, and that's in a safe structure. Again, tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. You
don't evacuate up to Georgia or Tennessee.
It's always a big concern for obviously fueling throughout the state. You know, people leaving, causing congestion on those roadways, and then ultimately our biggest fear is people being stuck on those roadways.
Communication is the key, and not getting false information and spreading that information. I'm sure that's a big issue nowadays with social media.
Yeah, so we have a really robust PIO team that makes sure that misinformation or disinformation is being handled. We always tell everyone to watch local news. They're going to know your community the best, and then be listening to experts like ourselves in emergency management or from public safety to really get that information from us, get it from the source.
Okay, Matthew, can you think of anything else?
I want everyone to know that be prepared early, and make sure that your plan is ready to go before anything happens.
All right, and I want people to know we don't want to see much of you during the hurricane season because that would be bad, but we appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us, Matthew Myers. Every year, Suncoast residents watch ABC7's forecasts of these tropical cyclones, so you know when you need to evacuate. Meteorologist Leslie Lacey has more on evacuation routes.
MyManatee.org/weather has evacuation routes at your fingertips. Main roads are the safest way to leave town. The same information applies to roads in Sarasota County, but don't wait until the last minute to hop in the car. Keep in mind, not everyone in an evacuation zone needs to leave. Depending on the hurricane level, the type of home you have could keep you safe. Just punch in your address and your level will pop up. Here at ABC7, we are in level D.
If you do have to evacuate, there's a chance you might come back to a devastated home, or possibly no home at all. So if you plan for the worst case scenario, you may be able to avoid the worst case scenario.
Make an evacuation list now. Take a video of all your belongings. Keep an important document folder ready to go. Include insurance, medications, wills, and financial information. You can take pictures and store them on your phone. And have a box ready to go. Fill it with power bars, drinks, and pet food.
And take an ice cube, put it in a cup or in a bag, and then back in the freezer. Then when you return home, see if it's melted. If it's melted down, you know you had a power outage and you need to throw the bad food out.
And turn water off at the main line to your house, just to minimize damage in case a pipe bursts. And shut the sprinklers down.
Thanks, Leslie. Whether you are riding out the storm at home or evacuating to a safer location, you will need to have a hurricane supply kit at the ready. John Scalzi shows you some must-haves for everyone's kit.
Your hurricane preparedness plan has many critical components, but one of the most important is the contents of your supply kit. Now that will vary from family to family, depending on need. They can range all the way from the simple, like water and a way to cook your dinner, all the way up to the very complex, like meals ready to eat and specialized water filters. Some families may require diapers, other families will not. Some things will be universal, like a water supply. But one thing is common to everyone's plan, and that is the concept of a hurricane supply kit. That is, you're going to be pretending you're going on a camping trip, away from running water, away from electricity, away from trips to your local store, and you'll have to fend for yourself for a period of about 5 days.
Your hurricane kit should include a collapsible or rigid water container to store water. Or you can fill the bathtub if you have liners and can protect the water from dust and debris. Of course, bottled water works. Store at least 7 gallons per person for drinking and another 7 per person for cooking and cleaning. For 2 people, that's a store of 28 gallons. Emergency water filters are good, but they can be expensive. And remember, most filters will not make salt water drinkable. Your hurricane kit needs supplies for power outages as well, a way to heat a meal, a source of light, and power for your cell phone. Your phone may be your only source of information after the storm, and a backup battery and a car charger are both very good investments. Also have an AM/FM crank or battery-operated weather radio.
For the following marine location, coastal waters from Englewood to Tarpon Springs out 20 nautical miles.
And of course, you'll need extra batteries and a flashlight. Stay away from candles or lanterns or other open flames. Stop in at your grocery store and pick up canned meals and snacks to put on your shelf. Use and replace them during the hurricane season. This will keep them fresh. Oh, and don't forget a manual can opener.
Or you can get freeze-dried meals. They sell them online or in camping stores, and they'll last for a long, long time, years in fact. Don't forget a camp stove and some fuel to heat up the meals. Plus, you'll need a first aid kit as well as some fresh medications. The list of what to include in your hurricane supply kit can be extensive. And for more details, I suggest checking out mysuncoast.com.
Thanks, John. Up next, one of the biggest topics on many minds, making claims. If you sustain damage from the storm, what's your next steps? We're breaking it down right after this. If you sustain damage, Leslie Lacey looks into the latest regarding insurance and dealing with claims and the best way to get the ball rolling with FEMA and the insurance industry.
Joining us now with insight to help you file your post-hurricane claims is Mark Freelander. He is the Director of Corporate Communications for the Insurance Information Institute, which empowers consumers with the information that they need.
Welcome back. If you sustain damage, Leslie Lacey looks into the latest regarding insurance and dealing with claims and the best way to get the ball rolling with FEMA and the insurance industry.
Joining us now with insight to help you file your post-hurricane claims.
It was pretty good though, wasn't it? Welcome back. If you sustain damage, Leslie Lacey looks into the latest regarding insurance and dealing with claims and the best way to get the ball rolling with FEMA and the insurance industry.
Joining us now with insight to help you file your post-hurricane claims is Mark Freelander. He is the Director of Corporate Communications for the Insurance Information Institute, which empowers consumers with the information that they need to make educated decisions and manage risk. Hello, welcome to the show. So, first question for you, what steps should you take after the storm passes?
First of all, we always say safety first. If you're able to get access to your home, try to capture the damage with photos or video, and then begin the claim process. Many insurers now have mobile apps where you could file the claims on your phone. Makes it really simple to start the process. But you want to start the claim process as soon as possible with your insurer. If you have problems reaching your insurer, call your insurance agent, whatever the easiest way is for you. But mobile apps are a great way to get the claim process going.
And talk to us about FEMA versus insurance. When would FEMA kick in for those who already have insurance policies?
Number one, FEMA is not insurance. You could never guarantee you're going to get access to any emergency funds from FEMA. So that's why insurance is so important. But if you do need FEMA help, typically it will cover above what you have in your insurance policy. That's actually a change in their regulations. So FEMA will provide some funding above what your limits are on your insurance policy if you're underinsured. But once again, it's better to have financial protection through insurance than assume you're going to get some help from FEMA.
I'd like to know, we're expecting a pretty busy season. So how have insurance companies changed to become more prepared for another active season?
After going through Hurricane Ian and seeing some of the problems insurers had with staffing in terms of handling claims, insurers today are in a better financial position than they were 2 years ago, and they are in a better position in terms of handling claims, having adjusters ready to assist you once you suffer the loss. So I think they basically have upgraded their procedures, which will be much smoother than some situations we saw after Hurricane Ian.
And there's more to this interview, including what to do if your insurance company goes bankrupt. The full interview is on our website at mysuncoast.com, along with many others under the Hurricane tab. Just click on that. We have more resources to tell you about when we return. Stay with us. When a hurricane threatens, nothing is more important than your family's safety. Trust the ABC7 First Alert weather team to keep you updated with all the latest storm tracks. Download our free ABC7 First Alert weather app to stay updated on everything you need to know. The power of knowledge is at your fingertips with the most updated forecast information.
And there's much more information available on our website at mysuncoast.com. And feel free to reach out to us on Facebook and Twitter with any questions. You'll find us on Facebook under ABC7 Sarasota-WWSB and on Twitter at mysuncoast.
We want to hear and share your experiences from the storm. To upload a video or send a photo, go to mysuncoast.com and click the Share It tab. And remember, safety first. No shot is worth risking your life. Only venture out when it's safe to do so.
And if you can't get us on air or online, you can listen to us through our sister radio stations on WSRQ and on 1220 on AM.
We hope you've learned a lot throughout this hour. Keep it right here on ABC7. We'll be bringing you the very latest on the tropics on air, online, and from our live desk. And remember, it's better to be safe than sorry. Thank you for watching this special presentation of In the Eye of the Storm.